Here is everything you need to know about butchering meat rabbits. I'm out in my rabbit colony right now. Many people have seen my rabbit setup on my other social medias. This is a video by popular request though, and fair warning right now, you're going to see animals get butchered in this video. If you have a problem with that, click away right now. Now, I have 3 rabbits that are past due for butchering. I let them grow a little bit bigger just so they'd have better fur, because I raise for meat and fur. Real quickly, I'm going to go over the basics of how to raise meat rabbits. It's far simpler than you might think. As far as their care, they're as easy to take care of as chickens if you want them to be. I spend a little more time, and from spring through fall, I feed them an entirely natural diet of fresh plants from my yard. But the most simple way to raise them goes like this. You purchase 1 buck. A buck refers to a male rabbit who will do the breeding. And you purchase 1 or 2 does. With 1 buck and 2 does, that's commonly called a trio. And you never really need more than 1 buck, unless you want different genetics in your rabbits. 1 buck can easily service over 20 does, so unless you have a huge operation, just stick with 1 buck. Now this trio of rabbits will do all the breeding for you. You can go ahead and name them, they can get really used to you, you can treat them like pets. Just remember their purpose is to be livestock though, and so when it comes to all their babies, they're being raised for meat. And this is a difficult thing for a lot of people when it comes time for butchering. Rabbits are cuter than chickens, so people have a harder time with it emotionally, and that's the only reason I think rabbits are any harder than chickens. The care is all the same. Feed them once a day, make sure they have water, and they mostly take care of themselves. Unlike Cornish cross, they have really good survival rates. But because they're a cute mammal, butchering can be emotionally difficult, and any losses you have are a little harder than if you're raising meat chickens. Make sure they have lots of clean bedding, constant access to fresh water, and constant hay and pellets. Rabbits' digestive systems work in a way that they always need food going through it, so if you give them free access to hay, that keeps their digestion going. Pelleted rabbit feed is usually alfalfa based, it has some grain byproducts in it, and minerals and vitamins added, so it's complete food. Technically, you can give them just a complete pellet, but that can be kind of expensive, so you can cut feed costs a little bit by giving them free access to hay. Because hay is cheaper per pound, especially if you're getting it directly from the farmers like I do. A 60-pound bale can be as cheap as $11 for organic grass hay. And that's a far cry cheaper than rabbit pellet, which can be between 30 cents a pound to $1 a pound if you get the really high-end stuff. And the last really important thing is make sure they have places to hide. I make these underground burrows for them because they stay cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter, so it helps them regulate their temperature a bit better, especially for the babies. That's usually where they'll go and give birth. In a colony setting like I use, the does control the breeding. If they don't want to breed, they're not going to let the buck mount them. And they'll chase him off and make sure he gets it. In a colony, you can keep the buck with the does all the time. A good buck isn't going to harm the babies. My buck is an excellent father to them. He's usually seen napping and snuggling up with them. When babies are born, the mother's going to take care of them. They'll drink milk from their mother for about 4 weeks, and then they'll start eating solid foods. Once the rabbits reach 8 weeks of age, I start weighing them, and it's usually by 12 weeks that they reach 5 pounds, and that's when I butcher them. Sometimes I'll raise them a little bit older to get thicker skin for their fur, but most often I butcher them at that 12-week mark. Depending on the genetics of your rabbit and the sort of feed you're giving them, they might reach 5 pounds sooner than that. And when it comes to butchering, they're physically much easier to butcher than a chicken, but emotionally harder. The emotional aspect is just because of how cute they are. If you've ever plucked a chicken, you know how much of a chore that is. It's nothing like that with a rabbit. You just make a couple cuts in the skin and pull the whole skin off like a tube. Once you're fast at it, you can do each rabbit in under 5 minutes. And from a 5-pound rabbit, you can get 3.5 or 4 pounds of meat with the bone. Some breeds have a better meat-to-bone ratio than others. And the meat itself, I'm often asked how it tastes, and really it just tastes like chicken. It has a slightly earthier flavor, kind of like chicken thigh. It's a little bit more lean than chicken breast. The texture is slightly different. It tends to be a little more firm. My favorite ways to cook them are to brine the rabbits and then slow roast them, or I'll debone a whole rabbit and grind it up into sausage. And that's become a new favorite recently. I want to do some more experimenting with ground rabbit jerky too, but as a rule of thumb, you can pretty much replace rabbit in any chicken recipe. Alright, let's get to butchering. I like to do my butchering in front of my chicken run. Chickens like eating any blood that drips. I give them the guts, any organs I don't eat. Any trimming that come off the rabbits usually goes straight to the chickens or to my dog. And it's great, nothing's going to waste. The chickens recycle that directly into eggs, and I save all the organ meats for myself, that being the liver, kidneys, and heart. Now for the butchering here, you're going to need a way to hang the rabbits. This rope has a loop on either end. It hooks onto their back legs. Then this stick just acts as a spacer to keep their legs spread while I skin them. I keep a table here to put the cleaned rabbits and organs on, and a bucket of clean water to rinse each carcass in. They tend to get a little bit of fur on them in the process, so having some water helps you get that off. You need a sharp knife. The sharper, the better. I sharpen my knife directly before processing rabbits. It just helps it go through the skin easier, makes the whole process safer because sharp knives don't slip as easily as dull knives. So sharpen your knife before you butcher. If you need a knife recommendation, here's my own branded knife, the SageSmokeSurvival Bushcraft knife. It's an excellent knife for processing animals. When you order one, it arrives shaving sharp out of the box because I hand sharpen every one before they ship. And I keep some Ziploc bags on hand too. I'll put the whole processed carcasses in a bag. I can usually fit 2 per bag. Then I'll save the hides in a separate bag and use a small Ziploc for the organ meats. And I label everything too. That way, if I'm going through the freezer months later, I know what everything is, even if I don't remember exactly what it was. This is called a rabbit tractor. I put my grow-outs in this sometime, especially through the warmer months when the grass and clover are growing well. Basically a mini colony on wheels. It has a tow rope in the front so I can pick it up and roll it and have the rabbits mow my lawn. That way I'm not spending nearly as much money on feed. In the winter though, it just stays parked right here. We got some rabbits that are over 13 weeks old. It is high time for them to be butchered. Do be careful. They can kick with those back feet and they got some sharp claws. All right. Hey, Maverick. You can pick up a rabbit by the scruff of the neck. I like to pin their legs, get them close to my body to handle rabbits that aren't keen to be handled. And wear thick clothing because they can kick pretty hard. This method of dispatching a rabbit is called the broomstick method. Put your rabbit on the ground, get him nice and calm. If you pet a rabbit's ears directly onto its back, it tends to calm him down. Never like doing this part. Take a sturdy round branch or a broomstick or metal rod works too. Place it behind the head. Maverick, get away. Now grab those back legs right now while the rabbit is still calm. All right, now quickly, I'm going to stand on either side of the stick. Make sure the head is pinned down well. Pull the body straight up. Just like that. You'll feel the pop. I can feel total separation of the skull from the spine here. And these are just death throes. It's the nervous system firing. This rabbit is dead. Hardly felt it. These death throes will stop in a few seconds. Never a glamorous part of it. Never like doing this. But this is how meat is made. There's our dead rabbit. He's probably closer to 6 pounds now. I specifically bred for this soft brown fur. This coat color is called chestnut agouti. It's what wild rabbits have. And just like that, with one pull, it's lights out. Now we'll get him hung up. With this rope, I just have a couple of slip knots. I have it hung on this fence post, nice and sturdy. I can really pull down on this. You want it to be strong because you really got to pull down on this rabbit to get the skin off. The older a rabbit is, the harder it is to skin as well. Young, 8-week-old rabbits are really easy to skin. It's like taking off a sock almost. I tighten that loop about halfway through the foot, not quite to the hock. I use a stick with notches on either end. Just like this. To start off, we're going to cut right above the ankles, just through the skin. So I'll pinch the skin, make that cut, bring it around both directions. And I don't want to cut that tendon in the back. It'll pull the meat with it. Be careful to just cut the skin, makes things easier. You'll get a lot of fur coming off here. Just try and pull it down, keep it off the meat if you can. Some always gets on the meat. That's why you just rinse it well afterwards. Try not to grind your knife on the bone either, because that will dull your knife quickly. Bring it all the way around. Next, we're gonna make that cut come down to the crotch. I like to cut it right where the white fur and the brown fur meet. You can have more control of your knife if you choke up on to the tip like this. Now don't reach your fingers over the edge. Just pinch it like this. Spread that skin as you cut. And then do it left-handed. That's always where it's tricky, where I really choke up, because that makes it a lot safer with your non-dominant hand. Some people use their dominant hand for both sides, and you can. I just find it's an awkward angle, so that's why I just started to learn to be a little ambidextrous with it. Once both cuts are mostly to the crotch, you can actually get your fingers in there and push through the membrane that connects the skin to the muscle. There we go. I can reach my fingers through. I can just cut. Want that cut to be above the crotch. Very carefully, don't get my fingers, just like that. Now, I'll go ahead and start peeling the legs. Yeah, a little harder because this rabbit's a little older. Use your knife as little as possible, but if you got to separate some membrane or some tendon from the skin, go for it. There we go. Both sides coming along well. Work it down. Now, you can see there's some good fat on this rabbit. That's good. Just means it was healthy. Use your hand to separate that membrane around the back on either side too, until you can reach through just like you did in the front. Separate that skin up to the tail. I like to cut off the tail. You can save it if you can. but I'm just going to show how to cut it off in this video, along with the genitals. You can grab all that at once. Put your knife in there, slice underneath the furry genitals. You can turn the rabbit around and cut through the tail. Find a spot between the bones if you can. Feel with your knife, and then it goes through easily just like that. And it took the anus with it. Now, you're free to just keep pulling that hide down. Like I said, on a young rabbit, it'll come down much easier. On an older rabbit, it might be a little harder. Then you get to the arms. Pull that elbow up and through. Pop your finger through the membrane on the opposite side of the elbow. There we go. Separate that. Peel it down to the paw. And then it should just rip like that. I don't try and save the paws. They don't add much to the pelt. Same thing on the other side. After you've done this with a couple rabbits, it becomes very intuitive and very quick. With both paws free, the chickens are getting pretty excited. I like to peel down to the head a little further. Now you can skin the face if you want. Some people like to keep the rabbit mask. I just like to get some of that neck skin because it's some of the stronger skin. Just like that. And I'll use the knife and just very gently ring around it. I don't want to cut through the fur. If I'm not careful, it will cut the fur. Just like this. Work your way around very carefully. There's our hide free. Case skinned. Now the chickens are going to town on that blood. That's good for them. You can see where that separation was, and the blood in rabbits clots very quickly. I'll actually give that clotted blood to the chickens. Makes good eggs. There we go. I just butcher these rabbits for my own use. For it to be legal to sell, you got to jump through a whole bunch of hoops. There's a bit of the genitals hanging through. Cut that, give it to the chickens. So where the genitals were coming through, insert your knife to get through the belly membrane. And at this point, we're really careful not to cut any organs. This is the point at which the chickens get a little annoying. Here we go. Cut it open all the way to the rib cage. I always check out the organs, look at the large intestine to see if there's any worms. It's often transparent enough you can see into it. They're looking pretty good. This rabbit had a bit of gas in its digestive system, probably because I switched feeds pretty abruptly. That can shock their digestive system a little. Separate that large intestine from where it connects to the anus, and you can pull all the guts out just like this. They'll separate from the stomach. They go straight to the chickens. I'll keep them entertained. Rabbits have a proportionally large stomach. Here's the spleen connected to the stomach. I like to give that either to the chickens or to my dog. Here you go, Maverick. Pull that stomach out. It's nice that you don't really need a knife for most of this. Here's the stomach. Chickens don't do a lot with that, so I'll just bury that. Here's the liver. Rabbits have a pretty large liver. Checking it out. You don't want to see any hard yellow spots on the liver. If you do, it could be a sign of various diseases like coccidiosis or even tularemia. All the livers I've ever butchered from my rabbits have looked healthy. And here you can see the gallbladder as well. The gallbladder is just this little green sac. We'll cut that out. And the liver is delicious, just fried up with some butter. I like to add it into my sausage. It's the most nutritionally dense part of the rabbit. Give that gallbladder to the chickens. There we go. That's a whole rabbit liver. Here we got the kidneys. They should have a healthy amount of fat around them. These ones clearly do. That's a great sign. Pull those out. I like to slice them up, fry them in butter, just like the liver. Mild flavored. Liver and kidneys taste a little beefy, which is kind of nice on an animal that tastes like chicken. This was a male rabbit. Here's one of the testes. It's still inside its body. All right. We're looking nice and clean. Looks like the bladder emptied itself and came out with the genitals. Now there's this membrane here. Just pull that open. You'll get to the lungs and the heart and the thymus gland above that. Some people like to eat lung. I've honestly not tried it yet. The chickens sure love it. Here, the heart came with it. I'll separate them. Be careful with the heart because it tends to splatter blood. The heart will slip out of this pericardial sac. You can see here in my left hand. I'll give the heart a rinse. That's good to add into sausage too. The last thing up in this chest is a gland right against the ribs. There we go. I believe that's a thymus gland. That's good for the chickens as well. The very last internal thing we'll do here, split the pubic bone. That way we can pull out the colon. See how easily that split? All I do is gently press the knife right where the legs meet and rock it side to side. And it split right through where that connection point is because it's just cartilage holding that bone together. Oh, quiet down, ladies. Come on. You've gotten your fill. Just using your thumb, it's able to pull out the whole colon. That way, we're totally clean. No poopiness. Now I'll take the paws off the rabbit. To start with, take one arm. I'm not snapping bones. I'm just popping the wrist out of alignment, just like that. Then you can very easily cut off that paw with no sharp bones, just the dull bone ends there. Do the same on the other one. Just pull it sideways. With a little maneuvering, it should separate. Cut through the tendons. You can slip the joints of the hind feet too. Just like that. And I like to cut this tendon a little further down, just because it's a big tendon. Not nice to have in the meat. So I'll do an upward cut like this. There we go. And there's our carcass. Give it a dunk. Wipe off that fur and blood. There we go. That's our rabbit. Now, I won't freeze this right away. If you do that, rigor mortis will set in while it's in the freezer before it's frozen, and you'll end up with tougher meat. It's best to wet age this for a few days in the fridge. Even just overnight will be good. The carcass will relax again, and then it's good to freeze. So we'll just put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in the fridge overnight. Now, I just bury those discard pieces in my garden. All the bones break down. I've buried a lot of rabbits here. If you've got a big hot compost pile, you can compost it, but burying is just fine. Feed your garden. If you don't have a garden, then you can just throw it away too. So here's our results. One bagged rabbit. And here we have the hide and the organ meats. I really recommend saving those organ meats because that adds a whole nother half cup of meat to your yield. By butchering a rabbit, you feed the chickens, get treats for your dogs. Lots of people will save the ears and the paws of their rabbits as dog treats. They don't need to be processed any further. They can just be given fresh or dried. I often do that, so nothing really goes to waste here, except I guess the head and the stomach, but those go directly to the garden and just feed next year's crops. Feeds the very crops that I use to feed my rabbits. So any waste that there is all comes full circle. It may seem like a lot to butcher a rabbit, but at least for me, it's a lot easier than butchering a chicken. I hope this helps you, and I hope you get started in meat rabbits. Thanks for watching.